Do you feel that you relate as an empath and want to understand in greater detail what that means being an empath, the gifts you possess, and also how to create a sense of well-being and security from within? Stay tuned for this episode of Spirit Lift. Before we get started in this episode of Spirit Lift, if you enjoyed the content, please consider giving us a thumbs up. And if you want to be informed each and every time we upload new episodes on themes that we are passionate to share with you, such as spirituality, health and nutrition, motivational and inspirational videos, then please remember to subscribe to the channel and, very importantly, hit the notification bell down below, as this will directly inform you the moment each new episode is uploaded. Lastly, please consider commenting throughout this episode, as your feedback helps let us know how we can continue creating valuable content for you. In this episode of Spirit Lift, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ivana from Croatia, who has helped almost 200 empath clients from all over the world to transform their lives and achieve their version of success. Ivana, welcome to Spirit Lift.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
No, thank you so much, Ivana. And I'm really, really excited and passionate to talk and speak on this issue of people who relate as empaths. And I think, this goes for almost anyone all around the world who have this sense of they feel maybe more than they sometimes would like to. They feel more than that they just can't contain. That's why I can't put my words together sometimes, because I feel like I'm like that. And there's just an overrush of emotion and just feeling into many things in their life, whether it be with people, whether it be with different circumstances, etc. So I want to talk about in this episode of Spirit Lifts, for people who relate as empaths, how they can really understand themselves better, how they can harness really the gifts of what it means to be an empath, but also at the same time create the sense of, security from within, so they're not overwhelmed or being taken advantage of. So before we get started, can you please, Ivana, describe from your perspective what it means to be an empath and the characteristics, I can't say the word, characteristics of what that encompasses, please?
Yes, definitely. So empaths are typically people who have nervous system that's more rare among people. So we have a more that is more sensitive to other people's emotions and everything that is going on around them. We were typically born with this kind of nervous system, and then through the circumstances in our childhood and our early life, that those abilities become enhanced and increased. So we typically become even more sensitive through our childhood. So it's a combination of genetical precondition or genetical propensity potential to be an empath, and then combined with a certain set of circumstances and a certain environment in your childhood that produces these empath abilities. Often related to empath topic, we talk about highly sensitive people too. So this is something that is similar but not completely same. Highly sensitive people, in addition to feeling other people's energy and emotions, also are usually very sensitive to sound, smell, light. So they also have physical sensitivity, whereas empaths can be highly sensitive that way too, but they don't have to be. So it can be only emotional for them. So if you're wondering, if anyone who's watching this, if you're wondering if you are an empath, typical signs of being an empath is when you know how other people are feeling very quickly. Usually after seeing them, they don't even have to talk. Most of the time, you just look at them and you already get a sense of how they're feeling. If you get easily overwhelmed by situations, that can lead also to high levels of anxiety. A lot of empaths are suffering from high levels of anxiety because of all these intense emotions that they're feeling and that they need to deal with. A lot of empaths also have certain intuitive abilities where they know what's going to happen, or they feel how circumstances are going to evolve. A lot of empaths have strong connection to animals and to nature and to water. So those are some very specific characteristics that most empaths are experiencing in their lives. And what happens often is that because we are experiencing that since we are born, we don't really know for a long time that there are people who feel or function differently, which represents a certain problem for us, because then we cannot completely understand other people's actions and why other people are acting differently, which then leads to a sense of not belonging or not fitting in or not being understood by your environment. And so this is why I think it's important to know the characteristics of being an empath and identifying with that label, because it gives you a sense of belonging, and you finally understand, that what was happening to you your whole life is actually something very normal. You just didn't know where it's coming from and what are the reasons for that.
Ivana, the way you describe how empaths are and the characteristics of what an empath is, for me, in a way, it sounds like a tremendous burden. It sounds like a tremendous response, like the feelings and thoughts that come to me feel like burden, responsibility, and I just feel like drained when I hear that. And I'll tell you why. Because I think I personally relate a large part. I don't know to what degree I may or may not be an empath, but I think as I've grown up, I've definitely felt that I encompass, something related to being of those characteristics that you talk about, right? And just because of the way my life has gone, the way I have felt in situations with people and circumstances, etc. So I feel that a part of me is like that, absolutely. So, but for me, the image and the feelings that come to me is like, I feel like it's like a jellyfish almost, right? It's just, I'm like this one organism, and then like as a jellyfish, I touch a bunch of different things and it feels a certain thing, but there's no like control within it, right? It just feels loose. So, but I also, like now at my age, I do understand more and more and have developed, I think, more intuitively ways to harness it for good. So I want to speak about that. Like, if people relate as empaths in the way that you talk about, maybe can you go into this different ways in which people can really understand how it's not actually just a burden at all, but also more deeply as a gift, how it can be a gift, and how we can really, keep that energy, because it is a form of energy, essentially, a way of extending it maybe, but how we can in a way contain it in a way that's healthy. Can we speak to that, please?
Yes, absolutely. I completely understand where you are coming from, and I understand why empaths would think that this is a burden. And I definitely thought it was a burden for a very big majority of my life. And that is one of the reasons why I'm doing this work now, because I want to help other people to not feel that way. I think the first thing that we need to understand, and that maybe helps with not seeing it as a burden, is understanding that having these kind of abilities, and they are abilities, roles in the society and certain jobs that you can perform that people who are not empaths cannot. And at the same time, people who are not sensitive in that way to other emotions and who are not experiencing the world in the same way as empaths do, have different set of problems and burdens that they have to deal with. So it's just, I would say, a difference in a life path or a life journey between an empath or a non-empath, but both types have to figure out how to harness those powers that they're having, enhancing their strengths, and kind of working with their weaknesses or things that are not so beneficial to them in order to step into their power and into their true purpose. So what happens, because a lot of empaths think and feel that this is a burden, which is totally understandable because you're overwhelmed with other people's reactions, emotions, opinions since you were born. Empaths start to repress and suppress their emotions very early on. And this is kind of unhealthy way of coping and an unhealthy way of creating those shields around you, so the energy wouldn't penetrate into your body and jeopardize that inner sense of safety. That works to a certain degree, and it's the only choice that most empaths have in their childhood, because they don't have a role model. They don't have anyone who would teach them how to do it differently. So they have to come up with a strategy when they're 3 or 4 or 5 on how to deal with that. And of course, that the only strategy that's coming to our mind is to suppress emotions. But when that continues for years and decades, it creates a lot of suppressed energy that is contained in our bodies. And actually, all of those traumas that made us suppress those emotions and protect ourselves in that way become triggers, which are then like a leak in our energy and a bunch of little holes through which other energy can come in an even more intense way. So that way of protecting ourselves kind of backfires, and our emotions become even more intense, and the issues become even harder to handle. So the healthy way of protecting ourselves and create that sense of inner safety is through healing our traumas first and foremost. So this is the first step that we need to do, and this healing needs to happen on the mental level, on the emotional level, and on the energetical level. And when we find healing on all of those 3 levels for major traumas in our life, already with that, we are forming an inner sense of safety. We're coming back to our wholeness. We're connecting to our authenticity. And then we're actually in a place where we can develop new methods and go into new methods and tools on how to guard that inner safety. But the problem with all the methods out there that are being proposed, like creating a shield around you, visualizations and meditations that protect you, which are amazing methods and they do work. But in order for them to fully work, you first need to have an inner sense of safety. First, you need to feel safe in your body. Because if you don't feel safe in your body and you create a shield around you, it doesn't really do anything, because the danger isn't really coming from the outside. The energy that comes through is just a trigger for what's going on inside you. And that's why, as I said, healing traumas on all these levels is key to actually to even start having that sense of safety within yourself.
I think that's a really important point you're making, because the thing is, if you're an empath or you relate as one, those first few years of your life, they say up till the 7th or 8th year of your life, you're just downloading information that really carries on with you the rest of your life. So I think as an empath, if you are if you go through certain circumstances growing up that are not favorable to your overall well-being, your psychology, your emotions, and they're so traumatic, that's going to be much later in life that much more difficult to be an empath, because you're going to just have, I think people who can't get over certain traumas earlier in their life definitely have a lot of anger issues when they get older as an empath, right? Because you've suffered from something so young, and like you were talking about before about the energy gets stuck down there somewhere, and it comes out in really weird ways later in life, and you're like, where did that come from, right? So that's really bad. So I kind of want to go into your therapy now, because you're a transformational coach. And so why did you personally want to do this? Like, we could talk about a little bit more your story, and then how do you use your work for people who relate to this to really change their life around and see this situation as being an empath as a gift, and also protect themselves?
Yes. So I've been working in corporate jobs for about a decade. I actually have a diploma in software engineering, a master's in software engineering, which is not related at all. And I was working in IT management. And somewhere around 26, I had my first encounter with therapy, and I went through a spiritual awakening, or actually I was introduced to spirituality, and that was a huge shift in my life, and that's where everything started to change for me. I was
sorry, really quickly, Ivana, when you say, because I just want to be a little bit more specific, when you talk about spirituality, what are you talking about exactly? What does that mean to you?
What does that mean to me? Well, I was through therapy, this world of authenticity, of concepts of ego and authentic self were introduced to me, and that was the first time that I actually understood that there is something more to people than our mind or our thoughts. I became very interested in what is the authentic self and discovering who authentically am I. Because I was of this belief that, I'm all these versions of me, and that there's no one. Even actually, as you're asking me that, I'm remembering my first session with my therapist, where he was talking about my authentic self, and I was like, what that even is. Today I'm one version of myself, today I'm another, and that's shifting and changing all the time. So how can you have one authentic self? So this is what intrigued me and what led me on that journey. And of course then the topic spread through everything that I was discovering.
And keep going, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So as I got introduced to it, I kind of felt, oh my God, there's this whole other world that I didn't even know about, actually, and I became very passionate about it. I didn't take it lightly at all. When I do something, I do it 120%. So I was reading, I was watching videos, I was meditating, I was doing therapy, and really not just understanding concepts on a intellectual level, but also applying to myself and learning about myself and what is it that drives me, what are some patterns that I'm projecting and enacting in my life, and so on. And so as this continued, I really became very passionate about the topic. I knew more and more. I was approached by different people in my environment because they were seeing the transformation that was happening in me, and they wanted to know more and they wanted advice. And I started to write a blog, and those were kind of beginnings of me understanding that I want to change my career and that I want to start doing something meaningful and help other people do what I did. However, I couldn't really find a method that I wanted to train in, because I didn't want to do something that will just work on a conscious level, although I didn't then know that this is what was bothering me, because every time I would start working with someone, they would come to this point of frustration where they couldn't break through, and then all the enthusiasm from the beginning and all the motivation that they had would just disappear, and it didn't feel satisfying. Also, what happened in my personal life was that after working on all of this for years, meditating, therapy, healing, and my focus being on relationships and understanding why my relationships are not working, I decided to be single for a while and really get over any kind of codependency, become happy alone, all of those things that they tell you need to do to be happy. And
have a lot of cats?
No, I don't have cats. I have dogs, but they live with my parents. So yeah. I'm a dog lover.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So after I did all of this stuff and I was in really, really great place for months, I met a person and got into a relationship that really was like a wrecking ball. Like in just like a month or two, my life fell apart. I was super anxious. I was behaving in ways that I couldn't believe that I was behaving. I knew on an intellectual level, I knew everything I needed to do and what I should do and what I shouldn't do, but that didn't have anything to do with what I actually did. And I just couldn't control my actions and my emotions or any of it. And on the day I broke up with that guy, I discovered the method that everything started with, which is Rapid Transformational Therapy by Marisa Peer. And what I learned from her was that the way to really work through issues and resolve issues is by working on a subconscious level and not on a conscious level. And that was the thing that actually gave me hope, because that whole situation made me feel really, really hopeless, because I thought, well, if I worked in such a dedicated way for 5 years, and then it's not like, okay, I got in a relationship which was kind of, it wasn't really what I wanted, but it was a total disaster. And I was a total disaster in that relationship. Like, what hope is there? How long would I have to continue the way I was doing stuff at the time to actually resolve that issue? And so finding out about working on the subconscious level was a huge thing for me, and I tried it out. It resolved my anxious attachment in one session, which is absolutely unbelievable and fascinating. And
That's
so
the RTT therapy you do, is that correct?
yes. And so I trained into that method. I also trained later on as an NLP coach, and expanded the therapy with expanded what I do with my, of course, intuitive healing methods and my knowledge and my personal experience, and started to I changed careers. In the meantime, the company I worked for closed down literally overnight. I had one paying client at that moment, and I was like, I felt that this was the moment, and this was the sign for me to start my own business. But I had really no idea. Logically, it didn't make any sense, and I didn't have any idea on how I'm going to make it work. But I trusted. I went back and forth between trusting and being super afraid, but I stayed with it. And now, almost 2 years from that moment, as you said in the beginning, I worked with almost 200 clients with, amazing transformation in their lives.
That's really incredible.
Yeah, and what I noticed as I wanted to niche and be more specific in what I do, I noticed at some point that most of my clients are already empaths without me explicitly being an empath coach. But obviously, this is the energy that I'm resonating with and that they are resonating with. So I decided to, make it official and to become specialized in working with empaths. And what I also realized in that journey is that through healing all of those traumas, through healing my relationships and my wounds that were inflicted by my family dynamic, I achieved this inner sense of safety, and that knowing of my authenticity and who I am. And it's much easier for me now to separate between my feelings and the feelings from other people. And I mean, as a therapist and as a coach, I work with people every single day with difficult stories, difficult emotions, and I am able to do that without being seriously affected or being affected to the point where I can't function or something like that. So that shows me, I find it as proof of the level of stability and sense of safety I have now, and this is what I want to do for my clients as well who are struggling with that.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, that's incredible that you've been able to do that for yourself, and that your goal is to make sure people who are like that also get to that level like you are, I mean, and it's great that you also realize that you need to focus and want to focus on that specific type of work and niche it down, so then your impact can really be that much greater for so many more people, who relate to this. And please let us know down below if you're listening on the podcast format or if you're watching on YouTube. Please comment below. Are you an empath? Do you relate to what Ivana's talking about with this type of person and characteristics? Please let us know below. It'd be great to know, and what issues that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. And Ivana, I have a couple other things I want to ask you before we close on this episode of Spirit Lift. Firstly, let's say, because you talked about it a little bit about your relationships or your relationship and your significant other, etc. What type of relationships in general complement or work very well for empaths, right? Like what sort of relationships are, a good match for someone who may be an empath?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a very interesting question. I think because of our sensitivity and our ability to feel in such an intense way, I think it's good for us if we pair up with people who are not so sensitive as us, so that they have so that they can provide this stability for us. But on the other hand, we need to be careful that they're not too cold, because that's, for an empath, that's very triggering and is just renewing those traumas of not being understood, not being emotionally connected. So it has to be, for an empath, I think the most important thing is to find a person with the right balance between being sensitive and emotional, but not too emotional, and be maybe more on the logic side of things, approaching things more logically, so you can complement each other. Also, it has to be someone that really understands our need to be alone, and our need to have our alone time, our recharging time, our time where we recalibrate. If it's a person who doesn't understand that, it would create a lot of issues in a relationship, because this is something that we need to have. I think it goes without saying that it has to be a person that can handle intense emotions and who can really hold that space for us when we're going through things. And if you are able to find that kind of person, and I'm sure that you can, because I know from personal example that this is possible, then this is extremely healing, because it provides for you something that you really needed and wanted in your childhood. But in order to even meet that kind of person, of course, you have to heal that childhood trauma to a high degree. So you come to the place where this would be nice to have, but it's not absolutely necessary for you. And you don't think that you can't survive without having someone who can hold that space. When you get to that point, then you actually can meet people who are like that.
That's very insightful and very helpful, I think, for a lot of people who are trying to understand those relationships that could work best for them, and just make them, become the best version of themselves, but also be with the right type of person. So I think that's excellent insight, Ivana. And
I think it's very important. I'm sorry that I'm interrupting. I just want to say one more sentence. I think it's very important for empaths to know that it is possible for them to find a partner that will be a perfect match for them. This was something that I needed to shift, and it was the last thing I shifted before I met my current partner, where I was buying into an idea or a concept of how relationships have to look like and what has to happen, based on the most common blueprint, let's say. So it's very important to even open up to the possibility that what you specifically need is out there, and that there is a person who can give you that in a way that it will feel comfortable and good for them, and not that they're doing it just because you need it and that they're forcing themselves into it.
That's a great, incredible insight, and I can relate to that personally as well, because I think for me, my wife is I think both her and I encompass a lot of deeply intrinsic empathetic qualities, for sure, but the thing is, it's right with what you're saying, I feel, because it resonates with me, because I see that with certain, especially loving, caring, emotions of that nature, they come out better, or they come out stronger when I'm with her, if that makes sense, right? So I feel like the better side of me, even though she's seen a lot of bad side, I feel like the good side always outweighs the bad side and comes out even stronger, if that makes sense,
Yes,
and I think that's really powerful.
Yes, that's amazing. I'm glad that you have that kind of relationship in your life, and I think that's kind of a definition of a perfect relationship, and that happens when there is this really, really deep resonance between two people. Of course, that doesn't mean there won't be problems or challenges or issues. That is one of the roles of a relationship, to bring up stuff for us to the surface that we wouldn't be able to heal by ourselves. But in the end, it's always coming back to what you were describing, and I think that's very, very beautiful.
No, thank you, Ivana. And I say, when the problems come up, I say, bring them on. I'll face it. Don't worry, so, for the good or for the bad, bring it on, So, no, Ivan, this is such an incredible conversation, so important. And just as we finish, the last thing I want to ask you, and just out of curiosity, trying to tie in a little bit of the thread of spirituality as well. And I don't know what your personal belief on this issue is, but just out of curiosity, do you think people in our circumstances, or from our own decisions before we come to Earth, do you think maybe before we come into, if you believe this, come into human form and we're here on planet Earth, do you think we decide in advance to come with these types of characteristics for this life?
Absolutely. I absolutely believe that with 100% certainty. So that would be knowing and not believing. if you believe that someone can know that stuff. I mean, I'm kidding a little bit, but definitely I deeply believe that the other thing with the subconscious mind and the subconscious patterns is that they're kind of demonized. And I think that's also an unhealthy way of looking at them. And that is hindering to all of us, because it's like, oh, you have these beliefs or you have these patterns that are really limiting to you. And now you're a victim of your own subconscious mind. And this is not really how it works, in my opinion, and now with a lot of experience in actually working with the subconscious mind, I feel that we all come to Earth already with a plan on what we will be experiencing in our childhood, which then forms our subconscious mind in a way that allows us to transcend and heal certain energies, certain very specific energies for us that help us evolve and grow. And this is why when we embrace that and when we open up to that, the more we heal those traumas, the more we're stepping into our purpose, the more we're discovering our own power, our unique gifts, and we're becoming more and more successful, we're becoming more happy, we're more easily manifesting what we want. We have a higher level of contentment and satisfaction in our everyday life, because we are actually doing what we came here for. A lot of people say, my life purpose is being a coach or helping people or whatever it is. I think that's just a part of life purpose. I think real life purpose for all of us is the traumas that we experienced in our childhood and the patterns and beliefs that that came about as a consequence of that. And when we do that, we discover our true power. our true power becomes visible and enhanced.
I think for anyone out there right now who's listening or watching, really, if you relate to this, and for whatever part of your life, if you really feel that there is certain struggles getting beyond certain ways of doing things, certain ways of getting over past issues, emotional issues, anxiety, depression that you have now, and you definitely relate to this and exactly what Ivana's saying and describing all this in amazing clarity, connect with her. Really connect with her and start understanding more of who you are on a deeper level and really transform yourself, as Ivana has. I mean, she definitely did through this type of transformational therapy that she went through, and now she teaches others to get on that track. So do it, really. I mean, do not spend another day going through a situation where you just feel that life is out of your control. We're not here on this planet that long. So we want to live the most amazing, open, beautiful, accepting life possible. And I think that Ivana can be a huge help in your life and just help you get on the track that you truly deserve and that you would really, truly want ultimately. So Ivana, really, thank you so incredibly much. And where can people find you, book a session with you, start on this path with you, and then just in general, like connect with you on all the other platforms? Where can they do that?
First of all, thank you so much for this, and it was beautifully said. And I always say, healing is not fixing. It's not about fixing you don't have to fix yourself. You're more understanding, more discovering of your own power, and just enhancing the quality of your life. And this is what it's all about. So yeah, I will be thrilled if you reach out to me, and I would be so happy to talk to you and to see the best way how we can work together and how we can help you get to that potential. So the ways that you can reach out to me is via social media, Instagram and Facebook. I'm more active on Instagram. I have a beautiful community there, but also I have a Facebook page. So on Instagram, it's at Ivana.Rapid Transformation. On Facebook, it's Rapid Transformation with Ivana. That's the name of the page, and on both pages you have the possibility and the option to book a free strategy session with me, or you can just send me a message. Both is completely fine. I also have a website. I think you will put all the information in the description below, so you can check it out. So the website is Ivana-rapidtransformation.com, where you can also find more information about me, and you can also get in touch.
Perfect, Ivana. So all of our spirit lifters out there on the podcast, on the video platforms, we're going to include all of Ivana's information, website, socials, contact details in the description below, also in the pinned comments. So please be sure to check her out, really, if you really relate to this, because it is really worldwide. I think, what's the word I'm looking for? I think a lot of people worldwide definitely relate to this, are really trying to figure it out, have more questions than answers, and really want to change their life around today. So please connect with her. I think she can really, really be a huge asset in your life and really discover and become the person that you really want to be. So Ivana, thank you so much for being on this episode of Spirit Lifts.
Thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to anyone who will reach out to me as a consequence of this. And I hope what the audience heard here, it was helpful and maybe helped someone today in their lives. And I will be very happy if this is the case.
Thank you, Ivana. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.